Tens of millions of people rely on California's water, water that's also helped to feed the world.
But the truth is, we are all one pie chart. I mean, we all have to utilize each other.
The rights for using California's water are complicated.
They used rubber cement, and over years, the labels have fallen off.
Tracking who gets what is antiquated.
The system has not been kept up to the complexities that we face in this kind of modern era.
As our climate changes, what can California do about its water?
We do not get to dip a straw in the ocean and just suck out what we want.
And what's already being done.
Water is life, right? We all need it every day. You need to keep the taps flowing no matter what.
This is the future of California's water, an ABC 10 weather investigation. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods, alongside the weather team, meteorologists Rob Carlmark, Carly Gomez, and Brendan Minchef.
Over the next half hour, we're answering your questions about what California is doing to secure our water future.
Water agencies are using innovative technology, including recycling and desalination.
But how is California's water even tracked? I went to one of the most important rooms in the state.
This is where we hold the ancient dusty tomes in case of a fire emergency or something like that. This actually holds the original record.
The records room in the Cal EPA building contains some of the most important documents in the entire state.
Our files are organized in ascending order.
These are water rights documents, and they officially state who has the authority to take water, from where, and how much of it.
We pulled out some of the earliest water rights that have been filed, some of their really old and hand-drawn maps.
About 7 million individual pieces of paper of all shapes and sizes, age, and utility are in this room.
Would you mind helping me turn this?
This South Bay map dates back to the 60s or 70s.
They took 6 or 8 maps and stitched them together to show the Alameda County Water District. This is the one we found, and we were like, wow, you guys went through a lot of effort to do this. They used rubber cement, and over years, the labels have fallen off.
But some of these older surveys and maps were drawn when folks were still traveling by horse and buggy. And as long as the water usage has not been modified, they are still valid today.
We're trying to actually reach back out to these water diverters and say, is this up to date? Is this accurate?
Because if this was the only map, you wouldn't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yet in this room, you won't find a single piece of paper dated before 1914. That's the year modern California water law went into effect. Prior to 1914, water rights in California were largely governed by a simple rule: first in time, first in right.
They didn't have to apply for a permit. They didn't have to obtain a piece of paper from the board that says, yes, you have a water right. They're just kind of there.
Eric Ekdahl is the Deputy Director of Water Rights at the State Water Resources Control Board, which is tasked with managing California's water rights.
If you were there first and you applied for this water right, or you obtained this water right, or you're claiming it, you get that water before anyone else who comes after you. But there's also something called the riparian system, which is really if you have land that touches a water body, you're allowed to also use that water, and you have to try and balance those two competing systems with each other.
Of the roughly 40,000 water rights and claims in the state of California, about 18,000, or roughly 30% of water use in the state, are pre-1914 or riparian. Efforts are underway right now to digitize water rights records to ultimately help the environment and hold water rights violators accountable.
We're trying to be more adaptive in our management of the water in California so that we can get more out of it. To do that, there needs to be a real-time understanding of who's using what.
Yvonne West is the director of the Office of Enforcement at the State Water Resources Control Board.
There's a large number of rights in California that are claimed rights that have yet to be examined, reviewed, or validated through any sort of formal process.
And when it comes to investigations, the Water Board has limited options to enforce state water laws. In 2022, during a drought emergency, a group of ranchers in Siskiyou County turned on their pumps and took water off the struggling Shasta River for 8 days. According to the State Water Board, it was so significant that the stream flow dropped by more than half and threatened the long-term health of the Shasta River and its ecosystem. The ranchers were told to stop and fined $500 a day, but it was cheaper for them to keep the pumps on than pay to have water trucked in. Their penalty totaled just $4,000.
It's really hard to use those emergency powers in the way that they're needed.
Marquise King Mason, with the environmental advocacy organization California Environmental Voters, is one of the people working behind the scenes on water rights.
If it's for agricultural usage, right, like they could be getting tens of thousands of dollars from that, but they only had to pay a small amount for like what was some unrepairable harm to that waterway.
Well, this is precisely why we need to give more tools to the water board to manage the system.
California State Senator Ben Allen is one of the many people in this state working on the future of water. He sits on the State Senate's Natural Resources and Water Committee, working on water rights.
How do we give the water board the tools it needs to ensure that we've got enough water for everybody, while also respecting existing water rights so that everybody can continue to grow? And that's the challenge here.
We're seeing what we call weather whiplash, from dry to wet, and the dries are drier and hotter and kind of more severe. So responding to that and doing it quickly is pretty challenging.
Water rights are divisive. After the break, why family farms are defending their water use.
Welcome back. Water rights are being scrutinized for their authenticity and equity.
Some rural communities are disconnected from usable and drinkable water sources.
But are water rights to blame?
And who's doing something about it? I traveled the Sacramento and Central Valley to find out.
This valley, these cities, this county would not exist without this river.
Mitchell Yerxa is a fifth-generation farmer in Colusa County, just north of Sacramento. His family grows 15 different crops, from watermelon to tomatoes.
Our tomatoes go to the largest cannery in the world here that creates much of the tomato paste for both California and the United States, much of it being specifically for Heinz. So if you buy a bottle of Heinz ketchup, more than likely a portion of it is ours.
To get this to our tables, they need water. The Yerxa family has what is called senior water rights, which in theory gives them unlimited access to water flowing down the Sacramento River. An incredibly divisive topic for how it shapes California water access today and the way the system was set up, largely stripping water access from Native Americans.
It really starts with the gold rush. Same way that people would come out here and stake a claim to land to mine, they would stake a claim to water.
That could happen in a couple of ways. If you own land next to a river, you get access. Also, if you claimed the land first, you got senior water rights. If you claimed it last, you got junior water rights. More than 100 years later, access to water today boils down to those rights.
And the way that it works is that if there's not enough water to go around, the most junior water right holders can't exercise their right. They can't take water until the most senior water right holders have used everything that they need. And so having a senior water right is incredibly powerful.
But those rights and unlimited access come at a price to farmers like Mitchell Yerxa.
I think there's this perception that exists that ag is just taking this water without any thought on where it goes or how it's used. But at the end of the day, we have to pay for every bit of the water we use, the labor we use, every part of the system, so we're only using what we need.
On average, the Yerxa family says they use about 20 to 30% of the water they have access to.
Any water we don't use is used by the next field to our west. So each field is picking up tailwater and utilizing it for the next crop.
But even with the best intentions, there's just not enough water to serve California, even though the state declared water as a basic human right. In 2012, Governor Brown signed a law declaring that every person in the state must have access to clean, safe, and affordable drinking water. Yet today, there are still over 1 million people that are exposed to illegal contaminants in their water.
So we have two sources of water. We have groundwater, we have surface water. In order for us to access surface water, we have to have water rights. Many of our communities don't have those rights to access surface water.
So instead, they must resort to water that is stored underground. In many of these rural communities like Seville and Tulare County, that water contains high levels of toxins from leaky septic tanks, agricultural runoff, and animal manure.
So this is where we need to make sure that we have better infrastructure delivering water.
So
this is their pipeline going, you know, it's right, this is an ag ditch, and that's their pipeline.
To their water.
Yes.
That drainage water seeping into the nearby water supply for the community and school. Susanna says one of the ways to address these concerns is to connect two smaller communities like Seville and Yedem to a safer and more secure water supply.
All of the infrastructure in Seville will be replaced, and also connect the community of Yedem and including the school so that they have a proper water distribution system with hopefully good wells providing safe drinking water. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer.
Susanna says the bottom line, this crisis exists because of poor water planning and lack of funding to develop solutions.
The question here is not who's at fault. The question is who's working towards a solution. These are farm worker communities. We work with the ag industry. We're part of that fabric. So we need to find solutions where we all win.
But the truth is we are all one pie chart. I mean, we all have to utilize each other. I mean, we are the ones growing the food. You're the ones buying the food. We can't exist without you, and you can't exist without us. So we have to work together.
After the break, we head to the ocean for a heated debate. Can desalination solve our water crisis?
Welcome back. One of the biggest questions the weather team gets about water scarcity is, what about desalination?
Can the state use more of it?
Is it worth the cost?
The Pacific Ocean presents a big opportunity to get more fresh water. However, unlocking that opportunity will cost time, money, and resources. California is the land of boom and bust. Our weather has the most dramatic swings in America. California also has some of the most drastically different climate zones. Since the 1800s, there's been one common issue: maximizing the water supply. The massive system California has in place now is one of the most complicated, robust, and successful systems ever created. More recently, that system is incorporating the ocean. Desalination, or desal for short, is being put to the test in at least a dozen different facilities in coastal areas up and down the state. The plant in San Diego County is known as the largest in North America.
Desalination is an important strategy for a lot of these coastal communities in California because many of them are in small watersheds and disconnected from some of the larger interregional backbone infrastructure like the State Water Project and the Central Valley Project that does connect a lot of the state together.
Desal has many well-known challenges such as energy use, cost, and what goes back into the ocean, a very salty brine.
The ocean itself has to maintain a balance. Most people don't think about that. They just think, oh, big salty ocean. However, we do not get to dip a straw in the ocean and just suck out what we want.
Charming Evelyn is the co-chair of the Water Committee for the Sierra Club in Southern California and grew up in the Caribbean. She believes conservation is key for California's water future. She stresses that conservation, among many other water-saving strategies that are already used, could be done much better, and desalination is her least favorite option.
If you look at places like Saudi Arabia, but before they put desal, and Israel, they actually exhausted all the other options.
Israel and Saudi Arabia, which is now known as the world's largest desalination water producer, began using desalination plants decades ago. Facing climate change challenges, fresh water in those countries is harder and harder to come by. A vast majority of water in those countries is now desalinated water.
I think it definitely has a future.
In California, Amanda Fensel with the Union of Concerned Scientists shares concerns about built-in drawbacks of desalination. She calls it a last resort.
I think there's definitely a time and place for desalination, and I think that the hope for different people that have to make the choice of yes, desal now, is have we exhausted all the other least cost solutions? Have we already conserved a lot? Are we managing our demand? Are we using more fit for purpose water?
Californians have long been concerned about their water supply. In Northern California, our landscape allows for much more available water, while in other areas, like Metro San Diego, they have many more challenges. The San Diego area sits at the end of a long line of canals and aqueducts from Northern California. They also rely on the drought-stricken Colorado River to their east. San Diego has limited groundwater and smaller mountain ranges, meaning less snowpack. There is virtually no more dam and reservoir potential in the area. That's why in nearby Carlsbad, the Pacific Ocean is now on tap. The Poseidon Desal plant, funded by public and private dollars, opened in 2015. Each day it delivers nearly 50 million gallons of fresh desalinated water to San Diego County.
We really have to be creative, we have to be innovative, and we always need to be looking for where we can access that water supply. 95% of the community in San Diego gets desalinated water.
More plants will be coming online in California. A groundbreaking to desalinate less salty, brackish water for urban areas happened recently in Antioch and should be ready to be open soon. Other plants, however, like a $1.4 billion project in Huntington Beach, have been denied after years of debate.
The ocean does need a balance. There is always a balance to everything.
We're a few steps ahead, but we want to keep driving that to support our lifestyle, to support our economy, and move forward.
After the break, why recycling water might be the key to securing our water future.
Welcome back. Finding new water sources is a big priority for California.
But restrictions ranging from environmental to funding create big challenges.
Some areas are now trying groundwater recycling.
It's a process going from flush to faucet.
From flush to your faucet. Drinking recycled wastewater could be an answer to California's water crisis.
I hope that they pasteurize it and filter it a lot.
It's a little tough to think about.
The idea may disgust most people, but environmental protection advocates and water engineers say it's something we all need to get over.
The misconception is that somehow it's tainted and that the environment somehow cleans water. Actually, when we put water into the environment, we have to re-clean it when we take it back out because of the potential for contamination.
As our climate changes, extreme heat and droughts have become more common than floods in California. Since the year 2000, there have been at least 14 years of severe to exceptional drought conditions in the Golden State. Rupam Soni with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California says we all need to adapt and recycle the water we already have.
We really want to make sure we're planning for a climate resilient future, one where we don't have to exclusively depend on weather.
It's why she's helping test direct potable reuse water, or recycled water, that will eventually flow from flush to treatment facilities straight to your tap.
This is cleaned water from the LA County Sanitation District's AK Warren facility.
The water goes through a three-step cleaning process. The first step is to push the water through a membrane bioreactor.
The water comes in. Inside these tanks are just billions and billions of microorganisms. They feed on the remaining waste.
Water then moves through membrane tanks, where thousands of fibers filter out microorganisms down to as small as 1/100th of a grain of sand.
We push that water in through these different membrane layers. We apply a really high pressure, about 180 pounds per square inch. It's like the equivalent of carrying an elephant on the palm of your hand. UV light is a great disinfectant. If there happen to be any viruses or bacteria remaining in the water, the UV light would destroy that.
An oxidant like sodium hypochlorite, commonly known as bleach, or a hydrogen peroxide is then added. Darren Polimus with the State Water Control Board says as the technology develops, the water's almost becoming too clean.
Have you tried it yourself?
I have drinking.
What does it taste like?
It tastes exactly like the water you would expect to taste coming out of your tap now. There is no difference. They eliminate so much, they have to put minerals back into the water to make it drinkable.
Southern Californians could be regularly drinking this water as soon as 2032. The state has always been adapting to a water crisis. The first major drought on record in California, the 7-year drought from 1928 to 1934, caused the state to start building major reservoir operations and water projects. Over time, more water has been pumped out of the ground to help meet the demands of a growing population and need for food.
As Southern California adapts to an ever-changing water crisis, efforts are underway in the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys to recycle and replenish underground water for crops that feed millions of Californians.
We need to build additional infrastructure to send our water to those properties south of Elk Grove. That includes a pump station, a number of pipeline projects that will be constructed kind of concurrently, and then improvements on the growers' property themselves to help control delivery of the water to their properties.
Mike Crooks with the Sacramento Area Sewer District says this project, the Harvest Water Project, first stemmed from new state regulations to keep area waterways and the Delta clean.
Our approach is basically to send our water to them for them to use to irrigate their crops instead of pumping groundwater.
We may not be able to slow the rate of climate change, but lawmakers, engineers, and environmental advocates say we can change how we adapt.
We spend a lot of time and energy and money moving water to our cities, both San Francisco, LA. That water gets taken there now, used once, and then disposed of. Why not use it again?
Water is life, right? We all need it every day. It's something we can't run out of. You need to keep the taps flowing no matter what.
Thank you for watching our investigation into the future of California's water.
There is no single solution to our water crisis.
But the clock is ticking to do more.
For more weather investigations like this one, head to abc10.com/weather.